Hi there. Today we're going to look at how to make the Lighthouse landscape assignment. And so basically we're going to be doing this in two sections because it's quite lengthy. So I'll be showing you firstly how to make the landscape portion of this. So first I'll just share the screen. So you should be able to see now a new file, a new Blender file. And the first thing we always do when we start any file is click on File, Save As, and you would want to be saving it to your H drive. And then basically you would be putting it into your computer animation folder, into the assignments folder. And for lack of a better name, we'll call this landscape. So when we come back into our Blender file, you should see that we are in our H drive in our computer animation folder, and we've called it landscape. Now, the next thing we always want to do is we want to change from perspective view into orthographic view. So I'm going to press the number 5 on the keypad to get me into orthographic view. Now, while I'm at it, I'm going to press number 7 on the numpad to put me into top view. Now, what I would like to do is I'd like to get rid of my cube. So I'm just going to press the delete key on the keyboard to delete that out. And instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to add a mesh. And instead of a cube, what I'm going to add is a plane. Now, what I would like this to do is this would be my landscape for my lighthouse that we're going to be creating. And the lighthouse is going to be basically looking like it's on a cliff overlooking the water. So we're going to be trying to make this sort of raised area here. And the first thing we're going to start with is a very basic plane. And I'm going to scale this. I'm going to press S10 to make this 10 times bigger. So if I zoom out a bit, I can see what this looks like. Excuse me. And now what I want to do is I want to go into edit mode. So I'm going to click on object mode here and change it to edit mode. And in here, what I want to do as well now is I would like to get a whole bunch of vertices, some extra vertices. Because right now this plane is a very basic, and I'll go into front view, two-dimensional object that only has 4 vertices. So I'm going to click on this subdivide option that I find by scrolling down on the left side here. And I'm going to click it once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and now one more time, a 6th time. So I have a number of vertices in here. Now, what I want to do is while I'm in edit mode, I'm going to select A on the keyboard. That deselects all of the object. And then I'm going to press the letter C, which enables me to circle select. So I'm going to scroll wheel just to make my circle a little bit smaller. And I'm just going to create sort of basically a bit of a shoreline that I'm going to have. And I'm going to then scroll wheel and select the rest of this over here so that all of this is highlighted. Now, just so you know, all we're doing is simply selecting these vertices. We haven't done anything else. So the circle selection is just enabling me to select these vertices more quickly. When I'm finished with the circle selection, I can press escape on the keyboard. And now if you look in front view, I still have a flat plane. All I have done is selected a little bit of vertices, well, about half of the vertices. And so what I want to do now is I want to go into front view again. So once again, I press 1 on the numpad to do that. And then I would like to raise up these vertices I have selected. So I'm going to press E on the keyboard. That stands for extrude. And I'm going to go up about 2 grid line levels. So that looks like about like this. And if I pan over, you can see that what I have is a raised now area that is kind of like going to be like the cliff part of my landscape. So this is looking pretty good. But the problem is that there's really no place in life where we're going to see a perfectly flat area. So we need to create some contour to this. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to right click on an individual vertex. And now if I were to go in G and try and pull up and move this, this would take forever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on one of those vertices like I have by right clicking on it. And then down here on the tools, I see that there is a tool, kind of looks like a bullseye, and it's called proportional editing. And I'm going to choose to enable proportional editing. And when I do that, I get another option over to the right. And I'm going to choose there a random option. So I'm going to choose the random option from there. Now, what I can do to make this work now is I can press G on the keyboard. And notice a circle pops up when I press G. So if I were to scroll wheel in or out, I can make this affect larger area. And I want it to make it affect quite a large area. So I'm going to make it quite big. And then I'm just going to raise up a bit so that it randomly raises my landscape a little bit there. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to click with the right button of my mouse, press letter G, and because I still have the random on, I can raise this up a little bit. Now, what I can do as well then is I can click over here, let's say, and I'm going to change from random here, and I'm going to make it maybe smooth instead. And I'm going to press letter G, and I'm going to make it a little smaller, but I'm going to raise this up so this becomes higher. And then likewise here, I'm going to press G, and I'm going to raise this down so this becomes a little lower, bit of a depression in the ground. And then I can go and do a couple more spots where I want to just sort of raise and so forth. But we get sort of a bit of a contour in our ground now that we wouldn't have normally had. Now, once we have sort of done with this and we're happy with the way it looks, what we can do now is if I were to come back into object mode, I will see that my my landscape is kind of contoured here. Now, one other thing I can do over on the left, there is a smooth option there under shading that I can click on to make it a little smoother. So that kind of smooths it up a little bit. But going back now into edit mode, what I need to do is I need to sort of separate this one plane, because all I have right now is the one plane that I have edited and adjusted, but I want to make it into two parts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into front view in edit mode, and I'm going to go and I'm going to press the letter B to box select, and I'm going to box select. So I'm going to click and drag. So I selected all of this area. Now, when I scroll over, notice that I did not get much of this selected. The reason being is there's a tool here called the limit selection to visible that I need to turn off. So if I turn that off and then I press the letter A to deselect everything I just selected, press the letter 1 again to get into front view, press the letter B to box select. And now if I click and drag and select this, notice now that I see that I've got all of this raised area selected. Now what I want to do is I want to separate this. But in order to separate, I can't press the letter S because that's for scaling. So the shortcut key for that is P to partition. So I'm going to separate this selection now. And now if I were to come back into object mode, what I have is I have my raised area, which is plane 001. You can see down here. And then I have my original part, the lower level, which is called plane. Now, that's not really a good name to have. So I'm going to scroll over. I'm going to drag this over a little bit. And I'm going to click on this little yellow tool here called object tool. And I'm going to change the name of plane 001 to grass, because that's what we're going to put in there. And then I'm going to click on the plane 001 and I'm going to change that name to dirt, because that's ultimately what we're going to put in there. Okay, so when I've done that, what I need to do now is I'm going to add what are called materials. So materials is a way to add a color to my object. So while I have my grass selected, notice I have my grass selected, I'm just going to scroll this over a bit so I can see the other tools here. And one of them looks like a round circle sort of, and this is called materials. So if I click on this, click on new, I could give this a name of grass. And all I'm going to do here is the diffuse color is the primary color here. So I could give it a color of green to kind of look like grass. Now, likewise, I could do the same thing with my dirt. So I could, in materials, while I click on my dirt in object mode, because I always want to be in object mode when I'm adding my materials, I click on new, could call this dirt. And for, lack of a better color for diffuse, I'm just going to click on this and sort of choose a bit of a brownish looking color. Okay. Now that looks sort of like grass and dirt, but it really is just green and brown. So what we would like to do is we'd like to actually now get some textures that we can work with. So I'm just going to just change my screen here for a moment. So I'm going to go and stop share and then share the internet instead. So basically I'm going to go to the internet. And now in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click and create a new file and click on images. And in Google Images, I would type in the word grass. Actually, I'm going to type in the word seamless because we don't really want it to see any seams. Grass texture. So I'll Google that and I'll come up with some options. So I need a JPEG option of something that looks like grass that I like. So let's say I choose this one. Let's say I think, oh, this one looks good. So let's say I could right click on this and I could save image as. And where I would like to save this to is I'd like to go and put it into my H drive. And I would like to go and in my computer animation folder, I would like to, in the textures folder, save this as grass, okay? Now, likewise, while I'm here, I'm going to do the same thing with dirt. So I'm going to just change the name to seamless dirt texture, and I will search for that, and I'll find some dirt that I think looks good. So maybe this, and I'm going to save image as, and once again, it should probably jump us into that folder where we're just at, so we can just name it dirt. And then likewise, while I'm at it, I'm going to change this to ocean and get an ocean texture, which we'll need in a moment. So I'll choose one that looks like ocean. Maybe I choose this one. And we're just getting some images that look more like realistic, you know, the view we would like. So once I've done with that, and I'm out of my internet here, I've got those three saved into my H drive in my computer animation, my textures folder. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to switch back to Blender now. So in here, while I have my grass option area here selected, and I've already added the material, I'm going to add a texture. And I'll just say this once, and I'll say it many times again. You must have a material added before you can ever add a texture. So you must have a material on an object before you can add a texture. But since we already have this material created, we can now go to the next tool over, which is a texture tool. I can click on new. I could give it the name of grass, and I'm going to go under type, and I'm going to choose image or movie. Now under image or movie, you'll see an open option here. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to go to my H drive where I saved that to, into my computer animation folder, and into my textures folder, and I'm going to go locate my grass texture. So it looks like this is my grass texture. Now what I want to do is click on both, and I want to make sure that it's showing as a plane, like bringing out as a plane. Now what I can do here as well is under here, I want to make sure that the under mapping that it is not UV, but rather generated, that is saying, and I would like it to project as flat. So looks like we've done this, but let's take a look at what this looks like now. So this is where we get into the idea of a camera. So while I'm in object mode, I'm just going to press 0 on the number pad, and that's going to show me what my camera is going to see. So this is where my camera is right now, and I'm just going to go click on 3 to see side view, and I'm just going to grab my camera by right-clicking on it and G and pull back a little bit, and then press 0 again to see where the camera is viewing. And so I'm just going to press the letter G while I have my camera selected and just sort of move this around a little bit so I can see what it's going to look like. Now, on the screen now, we could press the letter F12. So F12 on the keyboard, that's at the very top, and this will allow me to see excuse me, what the render will look like. Now, obviously it's starting to look a little bit like grass, but you can see it looks really big, like it's looking too chunky. So what we can do to fix that, and to get out of the render, we can press escape, is I'm going to go back and select the grass. And in the textures screen here, where it says size, I'm going to change this to something more. So I'm going to actually make the size bigger. I'm going to make it like a 3 instead of a 1. And I'm just going to press the tab key to get the X, Y, and Z size to 3. Now if I go and press the F12 key on the keyboard, what I will see is I still have my grass, but now it's looking a little smaller and looking probably a little better than it did before. So I'm going to press escape to get out of the render, and now I'm going to click on dirt. So same thing. Once again, we have a dirt material, and we always have to have a material before we add the texture. But now I'm going to click on texture here. I'm going to scroll up so I can see the new option here. And then I'm going to give this a name of dirt. And I'm going to press the enter key. And I then have to scroll down and look for the open option in my screen here. And so if I'm not seeing the open option, it's because I haven't yet changed to image or movie. So if I click on image or movie, I should see then the open option here. And then I'm going to go to the H drive. I'm going to go into my computer animation, into my textures folder, and find the dirt texture. Now, once again, once we have this, we're going to click on both, make sure it's a flat projection. And I'm also going to go down here, and I'll probably change the size to about a 3, like I did before, so that it's not looking too big. So then if I do a render of this, what we will see is we have our dirt as well, and it's looking pretty good. Could maybe even make it like a 4 or 5 for size. But the other issue is you can see the cliffs aren't really showing the texture well. So let's take a look at how we can fix that. So I'm going to press escape out of here, and I'll maybe make my size about a 5 instead. But as well, under projection here, where it's saying flat, I'm going to change this to cube, and this will enable it to go up the walls as well. So now if I render, what we'll see is we will see some of that dirt. It'll give it a little bit more of a dirt texture than we have right now. Now, the other thing you see is sort of this white glow here. And the reason for this, and I'm going to press escape out of here, is because in materials for the dirt, I have a specularity on. That's another word for basically a reflection. And my intensity is at 0.5. So if I were to go and change this to 0 instead, what I will see is that when I do my render now, I don't have that glow anymore. So now I just have my dirt and I have my grass. So it's looking pretty good. Now, the last thing I need to do for my landscape is this. I'm going to go into top view. So I'm going to press 7 on the numpad. And I'm just going to make sure, in case my cursor were over here somewhere, I can Shift C to put it right back in the center on the intersection of the 3 axes. And now I'm going to click on Add Mesh Plane once again. And now I have a plane, and I'm going to scale this. So S10, 10 times, just like I did before. And then I'm going to go into front view, and I'm just going to bring this up using my translate manipulator about halfway up my clip. So at this point here, I have this plane created, and I'm going to now give it the name, for lack of a better name, water. So this is my water plane. And so what I need to do now to add my materials is I'm going to go to material here, click on new, give it the name of water. And I can add a blue color if I'd like, but it really doesn't matter. But as long as I've added a material, then I can add a texture. So I'm going to then go to texture, and I'm going to go to new here, and I'm going to give it the name water, and go to image or movie, and then scroll down, find the open option, go to my H drive, go to my computer animation 250, go to my textures, find the ocean. And then I'm going to, under here, click on both, make sure that it's flat, make sure that it's under here is set as generated rather than UV, and I can keep it at flat here. And then I'll just do an F12 here to see what it looks like. Now, my water doesn't look too bad, but I could possibly size it a little more. I'm going to maybe make it a 2. I don't need to make it too much bigger. And then do an F12 again and see what it looks like. So at this point, I have basically my water. The only issue is I grabbed a file that actually had a line at the bottom. So I'm going to go change my size back to 1, just so it'll look a little better in this case. But in reality, I probably should have picked a different water texture at this point. But now you can see we have basically land with grass and dirt and then a water. So this is the landscape we've created. So I'm just going to click on File Save to save this. And that's basically the first of the 2 steps for this assignment. So I'm just going to stop share here, and I'm going to end this, but thank you for watching.